Hello friends, today I want to show you how to make an effective looking wisteria tree for small scale. In this instance it's going to be 1/50th scale, but it'll be equally as useful for model railway scale or just scaling up a little bit to doll's house size. So let's crack on and have a look, shall we? Now this tree is to mimic the tree on the recreation of this chateau that I've been building. You can see it has a sturdy trunk and some thick foliage and flowers. So what I'll be using here is some coloured sawdust, some leaf flock, I will leave links in the description below, some Seafoam, some super glue activator spray, a bit of clear varnish, and of course some super glue. What to do is gather together some pieces of Seafoam. Lots and lots of bits of Seafoam. First thing I've done tonight is just roughly map out shape of the tree that I want to create. So I'm going to use some pieces of Seafoam, and this one will be a useful piece because it's already got sort of bush structure stuck to it. So I will be tearing off and working pieces to sort of roughly get the shape I want. It's very brittle, so you have to be careful. I've already stuck this bit on. It's not a natural piece. I actually pre-stuck that a while ago. I'm going to stick this piece on now. Most of this is going to be hidden by various bits. I'm not going to match this line completely, but this is the kind of shape that I want to build this stuff. Super glue activator. It's an absolute boon when it comes to working with super glue, especially gluing things like this. I think that's a pretty much straight away rock hard bond. I want to add another little sort of trailing branch here. There's a bit that goes over the window, but it's a lower branch, so I can actually use something a bit thicker. I've just done a quick sketch, so it doesn't have to completely match what I'm putting out here. Just going to trim that a bit at the end there. These are too big really. I tell you, there's something, this glue is so much better than the thinner stuff because it just doesn't run everywhere. So these are all bits of Seafoam that I had left lying at the bottom of the box. They're not good enough for making trees with. They're good enough for making shrubs and smaller structures. Stuck where I wanted it to. We'll try again. I've just sketched out just a piece of paper to the size of the area that I've got to cover. And then referring to the picture I've got of the wisteria in full bloom, I'm just trying to mimic the shape of the tree as it's climbing up the wall. It's a well-established wisteria, judging by the thickness of the trunk lower down. So this is just the underlying structure that I'm making right now. Once I'm happy with this, I'll give the lower branch or the thicker branches a coat of brown paint, maybe with a bit of a black wash over the top of it to make it a bit more realistic. So I'm pretty much there now in terms of the foliage structure that I want to achieve. I have a bit more sort of sticking out there. I do get through quite a lot of this because it doesn't help to be frugal with it. You just have to spray it on where you need it. So to give it the third dimension, you need to have lots of pieces coming forwards. I think I can say I'm quite happy with that now. Just gather together my excess little bits of Seafoam. I can go back in the tub later. So now, if I find myself some brown paint, I'm going to just put a little bit of brown in the base of there. And it'll also help hide the super glue joints. So either foreground pieces are important to cover. Most of the ends are going to be covered with foliage anyway. I just want to paint the main branch structure. So I'll just give that a blast with the hairdryer now and just dry it out. That's pretty much dry. What I'm going to do is just add a wash of black. So this is a black oil wash. Ideally you need to wait for this to dry overnight, but I'm going to do the same again and just give it a blast of hot air from the dryer, and I'll just persuade the spirit in the wash to evaporate quicker. Leave the pigment behind, which just gives it a slightly better appearance than just flat brown. Now I need to find a suitable dry brush. We'll just have to most of the excess off there. It is only a quick dry brush, so that will be sufficient. Let's just see if I can pry this off. Just move the paper away. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the... See, I've talked about using hairspray before to put foliage on, and it is a great quick way of doing it, but I want to be a little bit more permanent with this. So this is a clear matte finish spray varnish. It's kind of like using the hairspray, but it's much stickier, more solid, permanent Now, I'll just do a little spray on camera so you can see what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do the rest out of an open door because this does kind of reek. So I want to do a liberal coating all the branches. Now, what I'm going to use is this leaf material. I've got much left of this, so I'll be quite sparing. This is leaf cover, mid-green. And we're going to sprinkle our leaf cover onto that varnished area. It does dry quite quickly, especially in this humid heat, so I'm going to have to apply several layers. What you want to do ultimately is just saturate the branch structure with a suitable liquid glue. And then I've switched to putting it over the top of the white paper so you can see it. So the white paper is going to catch any of the excess. I'll just tip it back into the tub so we can reuse it. But we're going to end up having to buy some more varnish pretty quickly. I'm going to give it another coat. Let's just tip that excess back in the pot. It's starting to build up a lot better now. I think I'm happy with the structure now. We really need to wait for that to dry. So I'm going to set that to one side. Next part I want to do is to add out making the wisteria leaves. Now for this I've made up some coloured sawdust. It's clumped up quite a lot, so I now have to go and separate it out by using my fingers. And I've also got a piece of string. All will become clear shortly. So the reason why it's on foil is because I've had it in the oven to help it to dry out. Well, basically this is just some very fine sawdust that I've mixed into a pot with some acrylic paint and a little bit of PVA to, and just now declumping it. I have a very fine mesh sieve here. It's not really a sieve, it's actually a bulb protector that I rescued from an old spider tank. And I'm just going to use this very fine mesh to sieve out some finer particles. So this could actually take a while. I'd be tempted to go off and use my coffee grinder to grind up some better. I should really have pre-sifted. Now I'm going to come back to this string. What I want to do is just cut off probably about 10, 12 mil, something like that, of the string. And as you can see, the string is made up of several particles, several fibres. Best mat to be using this because you can't see, but we separate all those out into smaller strands. What I was going to do is clump several of these smaller strands together to create a big one. Whereas what I might actually just need to do is just create a bigger, thicker piece of string to create petals. Still needs quite a lot, but I don't need to make quite as many if I use a thicker piece of string. I just cut the string in, or sort of separate the string out into 2 rather than 365. It's a good idea. Bit of variation, because everything in the natural world is uniform, so rather than cutting it off, I will just put a bit of glue on the full piece of string, apply some petals, and then snip it off. It's a nice big thick one. But that is actually easier using a big piece of string and cutting it down rather than cutting all the individual pieces first and then trying to dip those in. You're working with a much easier to manage piece of string. I've got a few petals made there. I need to make a heck of a lot more yet. But so I've now got my wisteria petals all made. I'm just going to move all of these onto screen until I've got them all there. And then we're just going to slowly start to assemble them onto the wisteria bush. Should add a nice bit of colour. There we go, that's the lot of them. Just going to be a simple matter of placing those onto the tree. Now, I might have a little bit of difficulty with gravity, getting them to hold, because ideally I think I want the tree sort of stood up to get it to stick in place. So I may end up experimenting with shifting it so it stands up. And I think I'm going to have to take my own advice there and just perhaps prop these up so they drop better. Because obviously if I'm going to do it like this, it's going to take advantage of gravity and start wobbling down. That's stuck to my tweezers. Now you see that's stuck upright. So maybe with a bit of encouragement with the activator spray, we can get them to stick in place. What I'll do, I'm going to end up using loads of activator. Just see if we can carry on with this for a bit longer. So what we're going to do is put a spot of glue where I want it and then the activator spray onto the... Oops, let's get it on camera. It's very fiddly, as you can see. It's just the weight of the sawdusted string causing it to flop. After a bit of careful persuasion, it does actually stand up. The deeper down areas will have bits that rest against little bits of foliage and help it stand up. I can see myself using a heck of a lot of activator spray. There we go. I thought I'd have to make hundreds of these, but even in model form, it doesn't require an awful lot just to populate it. We're a bit sparse in this area here, so we can add some more. at the back there. Although I should have done it at the depth first before putting it there. My fingers are shaking. I've got the wobbles. Maybe this is showing through with a bit of bare string, then I can always just touch up with a little bit of paint. I'll tell you what, this is a lot of fun. I like making miniature plants. This is where a third hand would come in really helpful. Give me a shake. There we go. It's just a matter of trying to get the flowers to sort of hang in a convincing manner. Just a few left now. It's gone quite quick. And quicker than I anticipated. That's not a bad thing. It's good when things are quite speedy. You're not having to sort of sit and curse. It's not going to plan. Can use the last two on. Where should we stick these last two? I think one might have to be there. There's lots of little bits coming off it, but we're looking good now, aren't we? Just put the last one over here. Why not? Just give it another spray just to convince it to stay up. And that's our mini wisteria tree. The next thing I need to do is stick it in place. So if we now just gently move that off camera. It's going to sit in here. I'm just going to check for dry fit first. And what I'm going to do is glue the rear of the trunk here. So it is planted in the ground, but just to give it a bit of arrangement to stay in place. I'm just going to stick some at the back. I've pre-drilled a little hole for it to sit in, but rather guidance. There we go. Only lost one petal. I'll put that petal back on like that. So there we go. That's how to make a wisteria bush or a wisteria tree. Any kind of wisteria really. I hope you found that really interesting and informative. If you have, don't forget to click that subscribe button. Give me a follow. Don't forget to share it with all your model making friends as well. Now I'm going to be showing a video on how I made this whole chateau in a nice time-lapse way. So don't forget to look out for that. And I'll see you all again very, very soon. Thank you for watching.